A buddy of mine came to me and he had a big old sore bleeding on his head, perplexed. He said, man, I know you're a Christian, and would you pray for me? The doctors don't know what's causing this, and I can't get it to go away, and it's just persistent, and I just can't win. I said, well, I'm not a doctor, and I'll pray for you, but let me watch you a little bit and see if we can get to the bottom of it. So you begin to observe your friend. Lo and behold, you stay with him one evening just to kind of see how things go in his world. Well, 1 o'clock in the morning, he gets up out of bed and runs smack dab into the wall. Goes and lays back down. 2 o'clock, same thing. This goes on for 24 hours. You see this man get up and run smack dab into the wall. Lays back down. Well, you approach your friend and say, man, I'm not a doctor, but I think I have figured out what's causing that wound. You keep running headlong into a wall every time. So maybe that's some of our problem. We kick against the pricks, as the good book says. We just keep hitting the wall. Those that look for answers, that have shunned God and his hope, I want you to know, regardless of what you think right now, there's a man that came to this earth, Son of God, endured many persecutions along his way. He was a good man, nothing but good acts and love. They crucified that man. He did it for you and for me. And that blood covers everything, every mistake, every failure you've had, all of it. Can't earn that grace. You can't dress good enough. You can't live good enough. You can't do enough good works to earn that grace. I think sometimes we don't understand that. We feel like we'll never be good enough to live for the good Lord. So therefore we give up and we just live our life willy-nilly, and bad as our heart tells us we need to do better, we just don't think we'd ever deserve it. His grace is sufficient. Now with great freedom comes great responsibility. I've always heard that in regards to politics, but it so applies to the grace of the Lord. Some people use that grace to abuse it and to get away with things and to live sinful on purpose, just knowing it's going to cover it. Maybe it will. I wouldn't want to take that chance. But we don't know God's mind. We don't know the depth of that love. How can the creation question the Creator? So those of you that don't think you can do it, maybe you've lived a life that's torn and apart and you don't know how to fix it. I heard a story about that, along that line. It's kind of an illustration, if you would. Little boy had a BB gun. He loved that BB gun. Wasn't no good at it. He was just young. But he'd go out in the back of his grandmother's place and target practice on little cans and trinkets around the place. And couldn't ever hit anything like he needed to. Well, one evening he was walking back up toward the house, and his grandmother had a couple of prize ducks there on the place, and he thought he was salty enough. He aimed at one of them, had it in his little sights there, and fired, and the duck fell dead. He couldn't believe he had hit it, and then it hit him that that was his grandmother's duck. What was he going to do? He had committed a cardinal sin in her book and killed her beloved duck. So he ran over behind the wood pile and buried the little duck and looked up, and his sister was watching. And she said, well, I saw what you did there. I'm not going to tell her, but you're going to have to do everything I say. Well, now he's locked into his sin, locked into his mistake, held down and bound. That evening they were in the house, and Grandpa said, we're going fishing in the morning. Johnny, get ready to go. Well, his little sister said, no, I'm going fishing and you're staying here. So he told his grandpa that he couldn't go and take little Susie instead, even though he loved to fish. Next morning at breakfast, it was time to do the dishes. Well, that was something Susie and her grandmother did together, but she whispered to Johnny, said, you better get in there and do those dishes. I ain't doing it. If you don't, I'm telling. So bound by his chains of sin, something he was trying to hide, he reluctantly went and helped Grandma with the dishes. Susie took off and they went fishing. He was sitting there in the living room, and sad and bound. Crying he was. His grandmother said, baby, what's wrong? He said, Grandma, I've made a horrible mistake. yesterday I shot one of your ducks and killed it. And the reason I'm having to do all these things is because Susie's got a hold on me and was going to tell you, but I just can't live with it. Grandmother looked at him with all the love in her eyes and said, Johnny, I saw what happened yesterday. I forgave you when you did it. I just needed you to come talk to me with it. You're forgiven. Isn't that grace? That's grace in my book. Beautiful story. So you've not went too far that his grace can cover you. So I'd encourage you to read that old book for yourself and lean into him. He can make it all right.